The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, hey everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me here. My name's Kai, and I'm here to give you a webinar for Character Creator 2.0. We're going to talk about some visual optimization. Most likely, we're going to concentrate most of the time here on some of the new features, including the lighting and the textures and all that stuff. We're going to dedicate quite a bit of time here to the Q&A session as well at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, as always, feel free to put those in the questions section of your GoToWebinar panel, and I'll be able to answer those at the end of the webinar here. I'll probably dedicate about 10-15 minutes or so to that at the end here. And as well, we are recording this, so keep in mind that if I go too fast for you or anything like that, we are recording this, so no worries about that. We'll send you a YouTube link later on. And we're also going to be sending you a survey at the end of this webinar as well. So if you have any suggestions for future webinars, any suggestions for tutorial topics that you want in the future, I also do a lot of the tutorials. So, we're always looking for feedback from our users, what kind of stuff you want to learn about, what kind of stuff are you stuck on. You can, check out the forums as well, forum.reallusion.com. You can check there and ask your questions there, or you can just, email us, give us your survey feedback. And as a big whopping reward for that, we'll give you a 10% discount coupon for the content store. All right, so you can purchase anything you want in the content store, 10% off. All right. I think that's about it for my preamble here. We're going to just jump right into it here. We don't have a lot to cover in this. It's just the basic Character Creator 2.0 features, a lot of the stuff that maybe some people don't know from the update, all kinds of stuff like that. And as always, any questions, put them in the questions section. All right. Now, I might be occasionally putting links in the chat window as well. So you can, I'll make a note of that before I do. So if I put something in there, there's also a chat window besides or below the questions panel there. Excuse me. All right. So let's get started. First of all, a little bit of an introduction to Character Creator. We have a lot of users maybe who are people who are just kind of curious about it, who haven't really gotten into it yet. If you go to the regular, the Reallusion page, reallusion.com, you can go up here to this little doodad up here and it'll twirl down. You can go to Character Creator. This is the landing page for Character Creator here. So there's all kinds of stuff you can find on this. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I know a lot of you are already pretty familiar with it. But for those of you who are new to iClone, new to Character Creator, this is a great page with lots of resources. There's tutorials here. There's your basic introduction. Hit some naked people there. Very, very, very natural page, we'll say. Okay. You want to know all the features, up to features here, you can go to features, and the new features with Character Creator 2.0 are physically based rendering, PBR. We also have custom assets you can design. You can export to real-time 3D engines such as Unreal, Unity, which I often do, and also publish directly into Sketchfab. Okay, and content. We're going to be using a couple of the content packs that you can purchase from the content store in this webinar here. So you go to content and you go to embedded content. This is the stuff that comes for free with Character Creator 2.0. Okay, so a bunch of morphs, a bunch of avatar bases, clothing, accessories, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And also in content, there's content packs. All right, I'd highly recommend checking out all these content packs. We're trying to pump them out as fast as we can to meet demand from people, but everyone's there's a voracious demand for Character Creator content, I got to tell you. So we're working as hard as we can to get more stuff out here. I'm going to be using this Assassin's playset here, which is a really cool set. Showing a couple characters from that. Also the professional outfits over here. Street fashion clothing. These are a couple of packs from some of our developers. The Brute Armor Mail and Task Force uniforms, is like UN Task Force Army dudes, and a couple other things here and accessories as well. And for morphs and heads, we have stylized morphs here as well, vivid human heads, and these ones are like the realistic kind of faces and everything. And then some motion capture, not really to do with Character Creator, but some really cool mocap packs that you can purchase to use with your characters in iClone. All right. Cool. So I think that's about it. I'm not going to spend too much time on this page. I just wanted to kind of give you an introduction to where the page is and what kind of stuff you can find here. If you go to Learn, there's the Learning Resources page here. And this is where you'll find all the tutorials, and you'll probably hear a lot of my voice. You'll probably get sick of hearing my voice by the end of this webinar. But if you want to hear more, then check out these tutorials, by all means. All right, so yeah, that's about it. That's all I'm gonna focus on for the web stuff here, and let's move directly into Character Creator, which I already have open. Okay, so Character Creator, the character we're going to start off with here is an Assassin's content pack character, like I mentioned before. So we'll go over here just to our characters, and you can go to base characters, which are naked characters, or clothed characters right here. And in the clothed characters, you can see I've purchased a few content packs here. You can find all these. I can explain more about these later if you guys want to know about them. But I'm just going to go to the playset Assassins pack right here. And we have a bunch of cool looking, very Assassin's Creed inspired characters on this, included in this pack. I'd highly recommend checking it out. I'm going to just load this one project in here with this one character here. And when he comes in, we're going to talk about lighting. All right, so with Character Creator 2.0, there's been an improvement from 1.0 where you can actually really enhance and customize the lighting to make it match what you would expect in iClone. Okay, so before with the Character Creator 1.0, we didn't have the option for lighting and all that stuff. But first let's put our character in a kind of a cool pose. So we need to go to, whoops, dropped a pin there. Let's go to Calibrate and up here on the top. And you can go to male pose. You can put your character in any kind of cool pose you want, like this, like a walking pose. Maybe that's a bashful pose. I don't know what that is. This one's kind of a cool hanging outside the high school pose. I like to go with this one because it's fairly heroic looking, I guess. All right. Anyways, okay, so we're with this. We have this character right here all set up. Let's talk a little bit about the lighting. So with Character Creator 2.0 now, you have the option to go to your Visual tab. The Scene tab will basically show all the lights and all the characters and all the whatever props are in your scene, okay? Just like iClone. The Visual tab will be where you can set all your cool stuff like lighting and IBL. All right, so let's talk a little bit about IBL first, which is image-based lighting, in case you're not aware. You can find that in the second or third section down here, IBL, image-based lighting. And you can see we have Activate IBL selected. And we have this kind of, I don't know, savanna type trees in the background. I'm not sure what kind of trees those are, but that's the light map. That's the HDRI map that is emitting light around our scene. And if we want to rotate that, we can go down here to rotate IBL. You can also use the Shift-I hotkey, okay, and bring that little gizmo up here, and you can rotate your background like this. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on, but just wanted to mention that. Okay, and yeah, so an IBL image-based lighting map is basically a map that kind of surrounds your character. Just picture basically a big, large sphere surrounding your character, and on the inside of that sphere, you've pasted this image map, this IBL image map, and that is casting light from the inside of the sphere onto your character. Okay, hopefully that's clear as mud. But if you deactivate IBL, you'll have only the two lights in your scene. Okay, so now there's no lighting, there's no IBL like kind of atmospheric lighting. The IBL is generally used for atmospheric lighting, ambient light in your scene. Okay, so if you take that off, then you're only using these two lights here. If you go to your Scene tab, you're only going to be using these two lights here. Under Lights, you'll have a key light, and you'll have a rim light. We'll talk about those in just a moment. You can turn those off. All right, so now we only have our rim light, okay? And turn that off. Now our scene is completely black. But however, if we go to Visual, we still do have the Show Sky. If we take that off, we'll just have a gray background, okay? And if you go to File, you can go to Edit rather. You can go to Project Settings, Control Shift and P, and you can change your PBR mode to traditional PBR and stuff like that. You go to Edit and Preference. You can go ahead and change a couple other things here as well. Just like iClone, I just kind of wanted to show you that really quickly, right? And okay, so let's go ahead then and show our sky, and let's reactivate our IBL and our lights and everything like that in the Scene Manager here. Okay, looks like we're at a full webinar right now. That's good. All right, so welcome all you guys who just might have come here. Okay, so that's the IBL. Let's talk about the shadows from the IBL. So the IBL, you can actually change the strength. So you can increase the ambient lighting. You can see everything lighting up on the character right here, or you can decrease that. And okay, down like that. So if you take it all the way down, it's basically the same thing as deactivating the IBL. Okay, and if you use sRGB, that adds a lot more contrast. I find to your IBL. I don't recommend using this in general situations, but I recommend turning it off just to get some nice, much softer lighting. Like I said, the use sRGB is normally adds a bit more contrast, a lot more contrast to your scene here. Okay, now if you want to add more shadows, to your character, let's take a look at our character's face, for example. Say, for example, I wanted to make his eyes, like his face, kind of engulfed in shadow, more mysterious, like an assassin. Right now, he doesn't look too mysterious because we can see his entire face. But if we wanted to add some more shadows to that, well, what we can do, the first thing we want to do is go to our scene manager here and select our lights. So I'm going to select our key light right here. And you can see when we do so, on the right, we have an option for shadow. You can turn that on or off, okay? So when we turn it on, we're casting a shadow from the direction of the key light. If you want to see what direction that key light is coming from, you can press the / key, okay? And you can see the arrow pointing downwards like this. And you can move it around by clicking on the gizmo. You have to hold down the / key while you're doing this, by the way, okay? So we'll probably just try and do something like this, okay? We'll see the lower part of his face. We want his eyes to be hidden for the most part. Okay, and then you have the shadow option. You can change the value of your light here, the multiplier value. If you want a stronger light, you can put in something like 2. You can see a stronger light. You can change it to more creamy kind of color there. And get a more like a yellow kind of sunlight. I'm going to take off my morph gizmo here, so I don't have that yellow thing popping over top of the character's face there. If that's what you want, you can go ahead and do that. You can do any color you want, but I'm going to go back and change it to 0.8 and back to a hard white light. And then we have the shadow darkness here. So the shadow darkness is something that we definitely want to change. So if I take the darkness all the way up here, you'll notice that we have a very significant change from 0 to 100 here. Okay, so that's the basics of your lighting, the light intensity, the multiplier value, the light color, and the darkness shadow. So let's go do the same thing for the rim. Now the rim here, you can see that it doesn't have shadows activated. And you can also activate the shadows by going over here to your scene manager here. And you can see it says no shadows. If we click that, then it'll cast shadows, okay? So right now, if we select the rim light and use our / key, the rim light is a bit darker. It's kind of grayish, and it's coming from the right, kind of the right rear of the character, okay? You can kind of see the angle right here. So the rim light is going to create a nice rim of light around the edge of our character. If we go back to our visual tab and take our strength down, or let's just deactivate the IBL for now, and go back to our scene there. Let's activate our shadows, right? So then we have pretty cool, like more natural, more accurate looking lighting result. We can darken those shadows like this, okay? So personally, I mean, this is personal preference in a lot of cases. I like to have high contrast lighting in most of my scenes. I enjoy the contrast of lightness and darkness in scenes, like film noir type style. But it's all up to your individual preference, okay? And obviously we can change the angle of this rim light as well if we want, something like this. But what we want to achieve is just have like a kind of a rim light on the back kind of hood of our character, just like this. Okay, so we have much more darkness in there. And we can also go to our visual tab, and there's also a shadow tab here as well, a shadow map. So this one kind of is where you can have more accurate shadowing. You can change the resolution for your shadow. The highest resolution is obviously 4096 by 4096. You change the strength of that shadow. And these are the global settings for shadow, okay? So this will modify the shadow from every single light. You can modify the darkness here as well to get higher contrast for everything. So when you change the global darkness multiplier, you're kind of creating maybe a bit too much shadow. Okay, so you want to kind of try to avoid that. Just have something a bit more reasonable. And I'd recommend using soft shadow with a high quality performance. If you have a decent video card, that's what you normally want to do. Okay, now in some cases, you may have a problem with the bias. So if your shadows are not completely accurate, you may have a problem with the bias. So a bias is kind of an easy way to fix your shadow. So if you press like bias 0, let's go to 0 and -5 here, just so you can see the difference. So when I press enter here, you're going to see that, okay, even though there's a light coming from, the rim light is coming from this direction, maybe there should be kind of a shadow in here under his hood. So what you can do is if you want more accurate shadowing, you can press 0, and this will be like the most accurate lighting you can possibly get. However, because it's so accurate, you may have some kind of issues with certain textures, and I'll show you what I mean right here. If we go to the key light here and I just bring it a bit forward like this, you may have some issues like with this angle. Take a look at the character's nose specifically. Okay, so the nose will have these little kind of lines on them that aren't really supposed to be there, so you may have some kind of shadow artifacts that appear if you put your bias to 0. Okay, so make sure that you, if I go to my visual tab and change my bias now to like negative even 2, it'll take those lines away, and we'll still have fairly accurate lighting for our shadows, but we won't have those weird lines on the character's face or on certain parts of the mesh or anything like that. So it's a fine balance between adjusting your bias and adjusting the direction of your light to create the most accurate shadowing that you want. Okay. Now another thing here that we can modify. Let's just yeah, I think that looks kind of cool. Looks kind of mysterious. Now you'll notice as well that our character's eyes are reflecting, and that's because the eyes actually contain reflection maps. Okay, so if you want to get rid of your reflection maps, what you can do is you can go over here, make sure your character is selected, go over here to the materials tab up here, and you can use your little picker tool to pick the eye. Okay, and they'll select the cornea or the eye. They're just two parts of the same thing basically, and you'll see down here we have a reflection map. Okay, so the reflection map and shader type is set to traditional right now. We can change that, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Reflection, you can basically just take the reflection strength down, or you can delete the entire thing altogether if you want. Okay, so this takes the reflection off the corneas, and then the eyes also have a reflection map right here, and you can take that reflection map off the eyes there as well. And so now it looks like much more mysterious and much more interesting. One thing I like to do, especially kind of for situations like this, is you can also add a little bit of a glow map to your character's eyes, just to kind of make them, more ethereal looking, like some kind of demon or something like that. I don't know, supernatural assassin. Okay, so to do that, you can just go to your. I suggest going to the cornea and just double clicking on your glow channel here, and you can load in a glow map. There's normally none that are default with Character Creator 2. I'm just going to go to my production resources folder here, and I should have some glow maps, don't I? Maybe I don't. Well, let's try and go find a texture map here that's kind of light colored. All right, we'll try to find this this green one here. All right, so now we have this green map, and if we want, we can take the diffuse map off on the character's eyes, and there you go. So now we have this glowing green eyes, and if you want to change the color of those glowing, or that glow or anything like that, you can go over here to the adjust color panel, just like in iClone, and you can adjust the hue. Right, so we can have purple, red. Let's try to go for like dark red, something like this. And brightness, we'll turn our brightness down like that, and contrast, low contrast, high contrast. All right, so you can kind of achieve like evil-looking assassin's eyes like that by just throwing in a grass map there and changing the hue. Okay, so you can have fun with that. Now, one thing that is not supported at the moment in Character Creator is global illumination. Now, if we were to take this character into iClone, you'll be able to see that there will be actually a glow map, and the glows will be, or the eyes will be kind of glowing on the top of his cheeks maybe, and you'll see some glow inside the hood as well, which is pretty cool. But unfortunately, right now at this moment, we don't have that for Character Creator. Okay, so I think that's really about all I wanted to talk about for the lighting, the shadows. There's a couple things you can change with the IBL maps as well. If we go to our visual tab here, back to this atmosphere tab, if you activate IBL, of course you can change the values of the IBL as well. You can adjust the color. If you double click on it, you can load in your own custom map. This is the structure, the folder structure for your for iClone's HDRI map. So you may want to copy this. I'll just copy this for you guys, and post it in the chat window there in case you want to find out where the HDR maps are default in iClone. Okay, because it's kind of a long file structure there. Okay, so I'll just put that in there. Yours might be like C drive slash whatever, but you can of course replace these with whatever you want. Okay, so this Kingdom Hall, for example, increase that strength right there, and you'll see the weird result on his eyes. Now you can, like I mentioned, rotate the eyes. You can take the image off and the orientation off on the sky if you want. Okay, you don't have to sync the sky. You can also blur the background. If you take off orientation and image on the sync sky, then it's not going to sync the IBL to the actual position of the image. Okay, I normally recommend just keeping them all synced. There's not really many situations where you wouldn't want them to be synced. And then there's also sky settings down here as well. So you can just go to that and you can move the sky image map in the background according to whatever you want. Now, if you want to, create your own custom IBL map, for example, let's go with that kind of creepy dark red theme. You can just go ahead and launch your image map in whatever image software you have, like Photoshop. And I'll create a really quick custom one for you guys here, just to kind of show you how the IBL map affects the characters. So what I'm going to do here actually is, let's go ahead and switch our character up real quick, because I want to show a specific character here. There's a female character with a pretty cool looking breastplate. I think that's this one. I believe so. Yeah, we'll load her up anyways. And I'm going to show you how to what a custom IBL map does, just more specifically. And then we'll move on to other things here, like materials. Okay, so this is our female character with a nice looking corset here. And let's give her a nice calibration motion here. Female pose. Oh, let's do something like this. All right, good enough for me. Okay, so you see that the nice IBL lights reflecting off your character. Let's go to our scene here and just turn off our regular lights. Okay, so we've turned off our lights. So right now the only light that's lighting up the scene is the IBL. Okay, and you can see the, for example, over here on her right, it's very bright right now. If I press Shift-I, you can see that most of the brightness is coming on the right side of her body there. If we move it around, we'll see that reflection move slowly over to the right side. Okay, I chose this character because she has a fairly reflective bust here and a leather corset, so it's easier to see the specular highlights when you're moving the background IBL map there. Okay, so fairly easy to see example there. If I load in a custom map, for example, let's just I don't know, use a big black background here just to kind of focus on add focus onto one area here. Let's make it dark red here. I'm just using rectangles here. Let's have one section here that's a red rectangle. Fill it with red, please. There we go. Okay, so here's our custom IBL map. Just wanted to whip up something really quick in Photoshop. Let's go to File, and you can go Save As. We'll just save it to our desktop. And you want to make sure you save it as an HDR image. Okay, so HDR right here, radiance image, right? And we'll call it simple IBL, enter. Okay, and we'll load that up into Character Creator now in the visual section. We'll go to our desktop. There's our simple IBL. All right, so what we have now is just this one red section here. If I rotate the background, notice the red, we can have the red coming from this direction. Okay, and all of these techniques I'm showing you right now, they're also useful in iClone for creating your own lighting as well, because you can do the exact same process in iClone. All right, so if we wanted to have more of a creepy kind of like red light district type, I don't know, image-based lighting, we could do this and rotate the IBL map in the background there, and then combine it with our scene lights, like a key light. And this one's probably a bit too bright. Let's take it down to 0.2 or something. All right, and use some really kind of creative lighting to. Let's go to our visual tab here and turn off our rotate IBL. And then we can use our / key to change the position of our regular light here. Okay, so you can see the amazing visual quality that you can achieve. This is only using one single IBL light and one single key light in our scene here. Also, like add the rim light there as well, and create a really kind of cool looking combined effect there. All right, so that's really the basics of using the IBL lighting and everything like that. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have to get to other stuff as well. More specifically, I'm going to go ahead and start a new project here. Actually, let's go ahead and load in the content here. Let's load in this more simplistic looking female character. The civilian, the plebe. Okay, no, we don't want to save that. Right, so we're not even using global illumination in this, and it's already like really nice looking. We need to reset our IBL there in the background. Oops. Let's go ahead and paste that directory structure there. Oh gosh. We have to find it. Relution content. It should be in template. iClone 7 template. Probably here somewhere. All right, we'll figure that out later. I might have to actually just go back into iClone here and wait. I didn't realize that I'd screw up my position in the directory there. Okay. Yeah, I have it saved here. Nope, wrong one. Sorry, guys. A little aside here. Let's just paste that in again. And I think it was in just a huge folder structure to get into, because I have mine in a very specific folder. So de-relution content. Okay. Let's go to our chat window and copy and paste the rest of it. Oh gosh, okay. Oops. This should do it. There we go, okay. Jeebers. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, we'll use this hull, all right. So I'm gonna give her a calorie position really quick. Let's give her a bit more of a sexier one, like this maybe, or something like this. She's blowing a kiss. All right, we'll work with that. And in addition to that, I also want to mention that I probably should have done this a bit earlier, but in iClone, if you load up iClone, there's atmospheres which you can load in as well. So up here under atmosphere, I didn't even have to go into that directory structure. Under atmosphere right here, these are atmospheres, and these combine scene lighting with a different IBL as well. So if you go up to atmosphere and you load one of these things in, for example, like this one in the desert, it's going to load in custom lights as well as a custom IBL. Okay, so if I go to my scene manager now here, you can see we have custom lights, and there's no shadows on these ones. All right, so if we add shadows, there you go. This one right here is more of like an evening one. And you can see the results there. The lights are slightly different. Okay, so there's a light over here, and you can adjust the strength of that. Okay, and one thing I like to do as well is with the IBLs, I like to kind of adjust the color here as well. So you can go to adjust color. This is kind of like the easiest way to adjust things. You have to be very careful with it because it's fairly sensitive. All right, so when you do that, it'll be a very it kind of just doesn't show up right away. The preview is not really correct. This is a known bug, so we're going to be fixing this in the near future. But keep that in mind. You can adjust this as well and the saturation and stuff. Okay, in addition to that, I wanted to load up iClone here because you can also go to your content tab, the stage tab right here, and under atmosphere, there's some atmosphere settings right here as well. So you can load in these, and these are custom atmospheres, the HDR ones and the basic ones. So for example, there's this horror one I like to use in my projects. You can just click and drag that directly into Character Creator, and here's kind of like your horror scene. All right, so it's lit from the bottom, and you can see she looks very creepy. And you can load in like this Inferno one right here for a different result. Okay, so some very interesting settings or atmospheric templates that you can add in there. I'll just load in this derelict warehouse one, or how about the scanner one? Is pretty good for this particular demo. All right, so you can load them in from Character Creator and from iClone as well. Okay, but we'll close down iClone for now, since we want to focus more on our character clothing template here. And what I want to focus on is her corset. Okay, so this corset is actually kind of cool. Now, if you want to select any item on your character, you can right-click it, right-click your character, oops, and you can just select it. So we'll select the corset right here, and then we'll go up to the Appearance Editor and activate the Appearance Editor. And what I'm going to show you here is just basically the normal maps and the color ID maps on this particular corset. So you can see it's fairly detailed. We have some pretty nice reflections on the leather on the front there. And I'm going to show you how you can adjust different patterns and different sections of the corset. Now this corset is kind of complex in terms of color ID. So when you load up the Appearance Editor, you're going to see, a lot of sections down here on the right. Now, it may be kind of overwhelming at first, but the easiest way to kind of sort these out is just to use this left menu here and click on Corset and twirl it down. And then you have your main sections right here, so mesh data, materials, and all this stuff. If we go to mesh data here, you'll notice that there's a color ID map. And this color ID map dictates different sections of the corset, how they can be applied with different materials and different patterns and everything like that. So that's why you see it's actually one mesh, but you see different sections have different materials. That's all dictated by the color ID map. And there's also the normal map here as well. So the normal map, if you want to change the normal times normal value down here, you'll see that you can flatten things out a little bit, but I like to kind of keep the normal map quite high, okay? And that's pretty much it for that mesh data section there. Okay, so that's where you get your color ID map. So what is a color ID map really? Well, you can go to materials here, or sorry, rather diagnostics at the bottom there, and go to enable. And once you enable it, you want to change your mesh data here to color ID. And that'll show you which material section corresponds with which area of your corset. So keep this in mind, there's a blue, there's a black, there's a yellow, and there's a green. So there's actually 4 different sections on this corset. All right, and those correspond with the black, yellow, green, and blue sections under materials here. So if you go to materials, the base is the black, okay? The green will be the buttons here. The blue will be this side right here. And the yellow will be these little straps right here, okay? And the green is also here as well on the yellow straps. All right, so let's kind of just focus on the base first, the black base. And let's go into diagnostics mode and disable that. So we're going to focus on this little base section here, materials. Now you can use any of these sections right here. You can generate your own leather, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So if anything says generator on it, that's going to be generated in the Character Creator program, which we're not going to use right now. Okay, we're just using this material base right here. And we're using an embedded leather, okay? We're not using a material-based generator, okay? We're not using this. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we're just using the material base, right? So these are embedded bases. So you can change it to like a fabric, for example, from a leather to a fabric, and you can see the result right there. You can change it to like a metallic look. This is like chainmail currently. If you want to change it to like pure gold, you can have a very expensive, probably pure gold corset, although it looks kind of cheap, to be honest with you. But yeah, we can mess around with all this as well. There's leather, there's Cordovan leather. I kind of like this one a bit more since it looks a bit more smooth. And I think the nice light reflection off that makes it look fairly nice. You can see it's kind of a little bit of roughness on there as well. And if you want to tweak that as well a little bit more, under materials base, you'll have materials base abrasion, and you can enable that abrasion. And you can create some more like kind of interesting looks on your on that section there. So if you derive it from the normal map, for example, or the height map, you're not going to have much of a difference here. There's also an input map for the abrasion, but this is the input map, so there's really not much there. Let's try and enable it from the curvature map, and maybe adjust our sharpness to something a little bit lower there. Not sure why it's so shiny. Okay, there we go. So we have the spread. Yeah. So you can add a little bit of abrasion there. Okay. Again, you have to be very, very sensitive with these sliders here. The normal intensity, you can pump that up. That's only if you're normally using the normal map we're using the curvature map currently. Okay, so the roughness adjustment, that's when you can modify. All right, so just add a bit more kind of abrasion to your, so you can see the kind of dots along there. That's the abrasion. Okay, it works better for some materials than others, but you can also tweak the material here as well. If you go to tweak, you can adjust normal intensity. Okay, so obviously you don't want to tweak the normal intensity too high. You can also adjust the hue, contrast, luminosity. Okay, so you can make it slightly green if you want. Make it slightly purple. All right, so these are just kind of regular color tweaks. Turn that luminosity down and stuff like that. All kinds of stuff here. Metallic. You can make this a lot more metallic by increasing the luminosity. Okay, and decreasing to kind of balance that out, you have to decrease the luminosity of the for the roughness. Okay, so now if we twirl this around, as it looks very, very metallic, very almost almost like a kind of a weird leather, really shiny leather. Okay, so if you want to achieve that, you can adjust these, tweak these values there as well. Now that's pretty much it for the embedded material. Everything else is in generator. All right, so we'll talk about generator in the next example here. But the last thing I wanted to show you on this particular character is the side here, the patterns. Okay, so she has this really cool looking pattern effect on the side. Now, if we go back to, what was it, the diagnostics mode, I think it was blue. Yeah, so now we have to go to the blue section. All right, so if we disable the diagnostics, then we go into the blue section here. We have the exact same thing. But now under the blue section, you can twirl this down, and there is a plaid section here. So the plaid section, there's a lot of different inputs you can use to create the pattern here that we have. There's the plaid section, there's the pattern section. I believe we're using the plaid section right now, so there's stripes. So the stripe A is set to 5. Under iteration here, you can increase that to have more stripes. Like, let's change it to something like, let's go to 0 for now. Okay, if you go to 0, then we take away the stripes going that way. Okay, if we change it to 5, there's our stripes back again. We can change this stripe to 0 and this stripe to 0. There you go. We're taking away those stripes. And this one here as well as 0. Everything down to 0. And that's the result you get. I think this one down here is probably from a different stripe. Let's go back and change those back to 5 and 5. All right, it's kind of weird. We probably have to misplace that, offset it a little bit. Okay, so you can set the offsets on these as well. So there you go. So when you add more offsets for the stripes, you can do the same thing for the other side as well. It's just changing the positioning of the stripes, basically. We'll just change that back to, I think it was 0.2 and 0.2. Maybe not. Anyways, that's how you can adjust those plaid stripes right there. Okay, and there's also rotations. You can rotate the stripes, you can tile them, and have all sorts of fun, just modifying those stripes. I don't want to spend too much time on the stripes themselves, but there's also, right here, so we also have the stripes. That's how we're creating those stripes right there. There's also the patterns right here. So under patterns, we're using one pattern. If we disable that pattern, you can see that those little I'm not sure what they're called, I forget. The little flowers, the French flowers have disappeared. Okay, so that's the under patterns right there. Right, you can enable that or disable that. Right here, the same thing in patterns 3. We're only using 1 and 2 patterns. Okay, and if you go to the, where is it here? The blue section right here. The patterns. It's even kind of complicated for me sometimes. But you can obviously adjust all these parameters right here. Now I believe the patterns can be found under. To check that out a little bit later on, but we'll move on for now. For now, you can also adjust things like the gashes and the seams and everything like that. Maybe this patterns right here. Yeah, okay. So here, all right. So it's not under the blue section. All right. So it'll close down the blue section. The patterns that you input are under the materials section. So under materials, right here, rather under corset, you'll find patterns here as well. You can change this from fleur de lis. Fleur de lis, that's what it's called. All right, so you can change it to like endless knot, for example, here. And you'll see that some of those will change to endless knots. Pattern 1, pattern 2, change also to endless knot. Okay, so that's the result you can get right there. So you can change those from a fleur de lis to an endless knot and get a kind of cool result like this. Even houndstooth you can change it to. Okay, so all sorts of different patterns that you can find there. Luckily, I found it. Okay, we'll just kind of keep with endless knot. I kind of like this kind of Celtic style endless knot right there. All right, so that's how you can, modify the patterns and the plaid stripes and everything like that on your character's clothing. Of course, you can also change the base if you want, the base material. That was the blue section here. So right now we're using fabric. We can change that to metallic as well. Right there, and not chainmail. We'll probably want to use something like plated mail, or maybe pure gold. Okay, that looks kind of nice. Just presets that you can kind of throw in there. All right, now she's looking pretty fancy. Okay, that's about it. Now the last final example here I wanted to show you is how to convert like a pre-PBR character. So a character that was created before we had PBR materials, and automatically convert that to PBR. So let's go ahead and start a new project here. I'm going to go to my content manager, and we're going to go back to the clothed characters, and this time we're going to use the professional outfits pack here. And we have like an army dude. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to create kind of a custom leather, like aged leather jacket. Kind of a post-apocalyptic style leather jacket. And we're just going to use the generator in Character Creator 2.0. Yeah, so let's give this guy that kind of cool pose there again. All right, who wants some? All right, so we're going to focus on the jacket here, like I mentioned. Let's actually just go ahead and use a different calibration motion for this guy. This one. Here's the heavenly angel type pose. All right, we'll just work with that for now. So what I'm going to do is, again, right-click on the character and select the field jacket right there. And once we have that field jacket selected, if we go over here to Activate Appearance Editor, you'll notice that the substance it's using is just a regular substance. All right. If we want to change this to a PBR substance with more color ID sections, what we need to do is go up here and select Substance Material. So we have substance presets that we can use. And if I click on that, you'll see we have these three down here. So we can change it back to traditional. But we can also change it from this one flat jacket right here. We can change it to different PBR materials. And the 3, the 5, and the 7 here, those correspond with how many color IDs you can have on your jacket. So for this one, I want to have the buttons separate from the actual jacket itself. So I'm just going to use 3 material, okay, because we want to have the buttons as a different color and the actual jacket itself as a different color. And once you do that, just go ahead and select Activate Appearance Editor, and we're going to see what that does to our character's mesh, or rather the color ID of his jacket. You'll see that different sections of the jacket will now have different color IDs, which is very useful for us. If you don't use this, I'm going to show you another step here once we're finished loading this. If you don't use this, then your character's entire jacket is just going to be one single white base or one single black base, and you won't be able to modify different areas separately. So it'll just kind of flatten everything. Okay, so what you want to do here is you want to make sure you go to the mesh data and you want to select Use Inputs. Okay, so if you don't select Use Inputs, see now we have a color ID map, right? There's there's a red and black. It's just basic 2-color ID map. If you don't select use inputs, what's going to happen is you're only going to be able to, let's see the difference actually here. If we go to field jacket diagnostics and we enable the diagnostic mode here and change the ambient occlusion to color ID, you can see we have the red buttons and the zipper and the black jacket, the black material. If we go to mesh data and we don't use those color inputs, so we deselect use inputs, what's going to happen is the entire thing is going to be black. So it's going to be one single material, which we don't want, obviously. So make sure that you select the use inputs and have those 2 separate sections for your jacket there. All right, so I'm going to kind of whiz through this next section here, generating the material. Let's just turn off our diagnostic mode. Another thing we want to do is also go up to our field jacket and change our output size to 1024 by 1024, and you'll see the resolution will slightly improve. And then materials. Okay, so materials base is the black one. Okay, and for this one we're going to use the generator. So let's go ahead and under here go to generator and materials base generator. Currently we have it set to leather. So if we go to our base or field jacket right here, materials rather, let's go up here. So we have the generator set to leather, and the mesh data we need to go to where is it here? Materials base, material type. We need to change under base material type. Currently we have it set to input map, so it's the custom, U.S. Army diffuse texture that we have set up here. We need to change to generator leather wood. Then we can change to embed leather, which is the previous example, which we have at the core set. But if we choose generator leather / wood, what's going to happen is it's going to use our generated leather. All right, so that's going to be everything that has a generator on here. So now we're using this generated leather. Now this one's pretty wild. You can see it's fairly reflective. Obviously we don't want to have this much reflectivity on a aged jacket. So let's go to our materials base generator leather here. Currently we have it set to cow leather. We can change that to snake leather if we want. We get a result like this. We can change it to crocodile leather, so we get that kind of crocodile leather look there, which is pretty cool. I kind of like the rawhide one myself. All right, just like this. And you can adjust this a little bit more as well. You can add or take away the varnish a little bit, so it's not so shiny. Okay, and take down the texture as well. I'd recommend using just inputting values for this actually. Okay, so if you put 0 in the texture right there, you'll have absolutely no texture. It'll just kind of flatten everything out. But maybe value like 0.2 will be or 0.25. Okay, we don't want too much texture on that jacket. Okay, so there we go. And so everything under generator here, if we select generator, these are all the stuff that we're using right now with this particular jacket. So there's the leather right here. We've already selected the leather, the pattern, everything like that. We can go to variation. If you add more variation to your jacket, it kind of creates a bit more of an interesting look. You can see it's darkening around the tops there. I'm just going to change my visual here. Let's use just a different atmosphere, maybe something a bit darker, so it's not so bright. All right, well, maybe we'll just have to take the strength down in general there. All right, whatever. Let's select our character's field jacket there. And okay, so the variation right there. And there's also like leather scratches and stuff. Now, one thing I want to do before I move on here as well is I want to tweak this a little bit, because to me, this jacket is a little bit too shiny. Just, it's around the edges there. So to adjust this, we can go to tweak here, and we can tweak our roughness. So I want to take my metallic way down here, the luminosity metallic way down, something like this. And I want to bring my roughness up. Okay, and you'll see that we'll add a lot more roughness onto that jacket surface. Okay, so it's not as shiny as it was before. This is just a good base. Okay, so a little bit shiny, but not too much. And then abrasion here, you can throw in some abrasion as well if you enable the abrasion. We'll derive this from our normal map. I believe we have a normal map on there. Okay, so then you can get some, just kind of worn out spaces along the wrinkles of the jacket there. So like it's a little bit worn out right there. You can tone down the sharpness there. Okay, so it's a bit worn out, but not too much. And if you increase the sharpness, you also want to make sure you increase the area and the spread there as well. So something like this. Okay, obviously the area not too much. Take the area back down to maybe 0.1, and the spread, I can spread that out or have it more focused as well. Okay, so the abrasion can be more focused in certain areas there. All right, but generally I tend to keep the sharpness of the abrasion down just so it doesn't look so reflective, especially on an aged garment like this. Okay, so take that sharpness down. You can see we have, just in some specific areas there. We have like here, along there, just some, run-of-the-mill abrasion. Okay, so from that point on, then we'll go down here to gashes and edge wear. So there's edge wear as well. Material, you can enable this. All right, so you can see the black kind of around the collars there. We can increase the, we can select derive from space normals. Okay, and we get kind of a result like this. And increase the amount maybe a little bit more. Okay, and then you want to also change your color because I think the color is a little bit too dark, so we'll change to something a little bit lighter. Maybe a nice light brown, something like this. Okay, and then take that saturation down. We can probably have to do that here. All right, so just take the saturation to maybe 100. There you go. Something like that will do. All right, so now we have that saturation or the edge wear along the edges of the pockets and everything like that. All kinds of values you can modify here. I don't want to get into too much detail since we're running short on time here, but let's spread that out a little bit more there as well. And we take the opacity down slightly. All right, so that looks kind of cool right there. All right, and then there's like blemishes and all kinds of stuff you can throw in there as well. Let's actually not worry about the blemishes right now. Instead, we're going to go down to here, gashes and dirtiness. These ones are pretty effective on like aged leather materials. So dirtiness, we can enable that and throw in some dirtiness there, and change the type to like a dense dirtiness. And you get kind of a burn mark like that. You can reduce it and change the values here as well. Even the sparse dirtiness might be a bit better. All right, and then the gashes as well. If we enable gashes, we can get some kind of cool like tiger-looking gashes on there. All right, so you can throw all that stuff in there, and this is automatically all generated in from Character Creator, not Crazy Talk, from Character Creator. So this kind of looks maybe like a kind of a cool post-apocalyptic leather jacket that you might find on some dude who's been through a lot of stuff, I guess. All right, and then you can just, of course, export this into iClone. And that's all I really wanted to show you for using the generator feature in Character Creator 2.0. So I think we're going to move on to the Q&A session here. I think I've covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover. Yep. Okay, so let's move on to the Q&A session there. So if you have any questions, guys, now is your time to ask them. And we have, 15, 20 minutes to just get whatever questions you might have out of the way here. All right, so question from Alvin. I'm having issues with weight painting in Blender for female dresses. Oh, you mean, so Alvin, you must mean the physics weight map. Is that what you're talking about? The weight map for your character's physics? That's probably pretty difficult in Blender. I'm not super familiar with Blender myself, to be honest, but painting weight maps, I'd probably recommend Photoshop for that. Not sure if that's what you're talking. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, Alvin, and I can help you out with that. Okay, so good question from Daniel. How can you create a character that looks like Mickey Mouse, which is not human? Well, Daniel, that is achieved through custom morphs. You can create your own custom morphs. You can import them in from in OBJ format from programs such as ZBrush or 3D Coat. I use 3D Coat myself. I think I highly recommend it. Another option is you can purchase, I showed you before those morph packs. So if you've purchased a morph pack and you go to morph, there's a really good one by Toka Motion here. And he has some really interesting like cartoon type heads here. So I think in your question you mentioned specifically, let me just open that up again here. You mentioned specifically a mouse. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's a mouse one here, but he definitely has like a cat. Okay, so kind of the opposite end of the spectrum there. But so if you go to morphs and under head and Toka Motion, you can use this cat head. And you can make your character look like a cat, or I'm not sure if there's a mouse one here. I don't believe so. But there's the cat and there's the a pig one. And you can have a cross between a cat and a pig too. Right, so here's if a cat, a pig, and a human splice their DNA together. This is the monstrous result you would get, the monstrosity. All right, so here's the pig one by itself. Okay, and then there's the dog head as well. So these are custom morphs, and you can achieve these by. We have tutorials online, I believe, on creating your own custom morphs. You can check in that character creator site there, the character creator homepage. Probably in the learn section here under learning resources. Could be something in here. So here's a playlist. Okay, so if you say view more tutorials, there's a playlist. I'm not sure if there's anything on creating custom morphs. Oh, okay, so there's Morph Sliders Tutorial 1, Morph Sliders Tutorial 2. So I'd recommend checking these two out, okay? Morph Sliders 1, Morph Sliders 2. They are for Character Creator 1.4, which is the previous version, but they should still be relevant on creating your own morphs there. And I don't believe there's anything. There's body morphing basics here as well, but this one is just using the embedded morphs in Character Creator, not customizing your own. But I do believe there's something in here. Just maybe search for morphs in this playlist and you should be able to find it. Okay, so hopefully that helps you out there. And that pack you can find under content packs. And down here, morphs and heads. So stylized characters, this is the one I'm talking about right here. And I'll throw this link in the chat window for you guys if you want to check that out. And there's also this exclusive learning resource pack here as well, which is really good. It's a really detailed white paper that talks about how to customize your characters, customize their morphs and everything. So I'd really recommend checking this out. Highly recommend it. In 1 hour webinar, we don't really have enough time to cover this kind of stuff, unfortunately, but this is something you can explore on your own time. And you guys can also email me as well. You can email me and I'll answer your your questions one by one, and hopefully I'll be able to come to a solution for you guys there as well. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's KAI @reallusion.com. Okay, I'm going to throw this link here in the chat window in case anyone wants to find it. Zoop. Okay, there you go. Okay, let's move on to the next questions here then. Okay, so someone offered me a project they're working on. Ooh, okay, so Chris asks a kind of question I don't really know the answer to here, I don't think. Can I use equirectangular video for the IBL? Currently, there's no video available for the IBL. However, you can animate the single image, single IBL image. That's in iClone. So right now, when you rotate the IBL, obviously in Character Creator, there's no animation, but in iClone, you can animate the IBL image. But unfortunately, there's no option for video input for the IBL at this point, okay? But you can animate all of the parameters of your single image IBL, HDRI image, okay? So if that answers your question there, Chris. So Frank asks, why is the background so blurry? The background's blurry because it's basically, if you look at these HDR images, they're quite large, but they're not really large enough to kind of, basically, let's see here. No, it doesn't show the parameters or the dimensions here. If you load it in Photoshop, it will. It'll be at least 4K for sure. All of these. Control Shift I there. What's wrong with my hotkeys here? Image size. Well, Alt Control I. So it's 4K. It's a 4K image right here. However, this is the original image, but it's basically stretching that image throughout the entire interior sphere of the entire interior of the sphere I mentioned before. So if we zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, like I mentioned here, this is a big sphere, and basically it's just kind of pasted that HDR map onto the inside of the sphere. So you can see how insignificant your little character is in the grand scheme of things. Okay, but it does blur it out a little bit in the background, of course, because it is stretching it out quite significantly. But there's the option to blur it right here to blur it more, but unfortunately you can't blur it less. You can probably throw in some more contrast. Oh, nope, not in this case. But yeah, that's pretty much why it's may seem to be blurry in certain cases. The higher resolution, I mean, the sharper it's going to be, but it has to stretch itself over the entire interior of that sphere. So you may have a little bit of blurriness. So Frank asks, why can I only use integers for the shadow bias, not 0.1, only 1? I don't know. There's a lot of different parameters in iClone that sometimes don't really make a lot of sense, personally, the way that they're measured out. But yeah, you'll unfortunately have to stick with the regular integers, negative 1 or 1 when you're talking about shadow bias there, Frank, unfortunately. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question there. Yes, so someone mentioned I should get a better computer with an increased, better GPU. Right now, currently what I'm using is I'm using a 960 GTX on this laptop. I've had this laptop for like 2 years, but I really love using this laptop. I do also have a 1080 GTX as well on a desktop computer. But I like to use this for stuff that's not too graphic intensive. I don't mind using the 960 GTX. And some of the stuff might have been a bit faster if I was using a better video card, the NVIDIA 1080. But generally, yeah. Thanks for that comment there, Joel. Okay, Granny J is here. So you mentioned, so Granny J posted the path, the file path for the IBL or HDRs I was looking at that before. Okay, so Don asks, how do you copy the iClone atmosphere into Character Creator? Well, I think I just kind of showed you how to do that. Just basically click and drag it from the library in iClone. Or you can also click and drag it from the Explorer window. Doesn't really matter. Hopefully that answers your question there, Don. So Pete asks a good question here. For speed, would it be best to stay in the 512 by 512 resolution, then change to a higher resolution before you exit the appearance editor? So the issue that I have with this is, I'll show you, especially for the leather generator. I'm going to show you what I mean here. So this leather right here, this is 1024 by 1024. Now, if I change this resolution here to let's go up here to 240 or 2048 by 2048 right now, take a look at what happens with the jacket. It's going to get like much stronger detail, a little bit more in this case. But if you go to the side here, you can see sometimes the grain gets a little too detailed, a little too complex. Whereas if we were at like 512 by 512, for example, you'll see a lot less detail here. It really depends on a lot of things. The requirements of the program you're importing into, like if you're importing into Unreal or Unity, then you tend to want to keep around 1024 by 1024 textures. Although, I mean, the faster your computer is, the higher resolution of textures you can support, right? So, go for it. But this one, especially for this particular leather generator, tends to have a bit too detailed. The normal map is a bit too detailed for 2048. In some cases, it's better. In some cases, or rather, in some cases, there's a really big change. In some cases, there's not a very significant change. So it really depends. But yeah, what Pete mentioned is, oh, my microphone just fell. Sorry about that. What Pete mentioned is, yeah, before you export, you normally want to change your output size to 2048 by 2048. And again, depending on what you're importing into. Okay, so let's go back to the questions here. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so Robert asks a good question here. Can we import a custom Relusion head created in Crazy Talk 8 and use it as a head in Character Creator 2, and then control that face with the iClone mocap? Yes, you can. So you can import in Crazy Talk 8 faces, rather heads, into iClone or Character Creator, and you can animate those using the facial mocap system. That's fine. Generally, people use the Crazy Talk 8 to generate the custom heads they take from a single or two photos. But that's a whole other can of worms that we don't want to open right now. So question 2, is the female warrior character you use to show reflection available for sale? If so, can she be used with different costumes? Yep, she's available for sale in that Assassin's pack I mentioned earlier, and you can definitely customize her costumes, Robert. So a lot of freedom there with that particular character. Okay, so question 3, working with the leather jacket, is there an easy way to better conform to the fit of the jacket to the character's body? Yeah, so one thing I should mention here as well is if you change your character's your body, for example, like I'm going to go to the content manager here and we'll go to morphs and maybe make him into a heavy female with a leather jacket and army slacks here. All right. So you can see normally it'll automatically conform quite well. Okay. So we don't have too many issues here, but if you want to conform, if you want to change the conform, you can just go up here to conform, and you can calculate collisions. You can adjust all these settings here. We have a separate tutorial on how to do this, but generally you can just calculate collisions and get rid of any breakages that you might have on your character there. You can also edit the mesh. So you can custom edit the mesh if you find that certain areas of your mesh might be breaking through. Let's right click, select the field jacket, and go over here to edit mesh mode. So here you can actually use soft selection and pull the jacket out a little bit, something like this. And use the W hotkey. You can bring it out like this. So you can. It's a very, very basic mesh editor. Like definitely nothing compared to what you have in ZBrush or 3D Coat, but you can modify certain things here and adjust the mesh to any custom shape that you want in Character Creator as well. Okay, so Alvin mentions weight maps for rigging. Again, I'm not really sure how to use Blender, but that might be a good question for the forum, because I know we have a lot of Blender users on the forum. I'm mainly focused myself on Max and Maya and Unreal and Unity, so those are my 4 main programs that I use. I don't really use Blender that much. Yeah, unfortunately, but I couldn't really help you out with weight maps in Blender. Maybe email me privately, Alvin, and I can take a better look at your issue there. Okay, so Achilles asks, how can we fix better the collision shapes for a dress? I'm having trouble when I use it with physics and iClone. So dress physics, it's kind of a whole new bucket of worms that I don't really want to open right now, but a can of worms rather. But yeah, physics to me is it's all about tweaking. There's stuff that you have to really, really, really tweak in physics. And maybe Achilles, just email me privately with your particular issue there, so I can spend more time kind of focusing on that, because we have a few more questions to get through here. I don't want to spend too much time talking about physics. It's not really related to Character Creator at this point. But yeah, email me privately, kai@relusion.com. I'll put my email in the chat window as well for you guys. Okay, so in case you didn't catch it there, kai@relusion.com. There you go. Shoot me over an email, and I'll try and help you out there. Okay, so Bernie says export from character creator to iClone carries the background from character creator into iClone and crashes Indigo renderer, which will render the unwanted background from character creator. So Bernie, maybe it seems like when you export your character from CC to iClone, I'm not sure what method you're using, but generally what you'd want to do is once gosh, this character is ugly. Once you take this character into iClone, you can just go up here to send character to iClone. It doesn't send the background, so the IBL is totally separate. It shouldn't send the background anyways. That's just generally the way that I use it. I just launch the character up in iClone. It's going to launch iClone for me here, but yeah, I'm not sure what issue you're having. It seems like you may be having some kind of glitch, and if you are, I'd highly recommend contacting customer service about that. So if you're experiencing some kind of bug, you can go up here to support Reillusion and then go to that menu support right here and customer service. I'll just copy the link and put it in the chat window there as well for you guys. There you go. Okay, so make sure you log into your Reillusion account and then click on that link to contact them. If you think you're experiencing some kind of bug, we really highly recommend contacting customer service so we can help fix that bug for you guys there. Okay, question from Rowdy Brian. If I make the jacket, could I export it only to use on other characters? Yep, you can definitely export the jacket by itself. Okay, so here's my character in iClone. As you can see, there's no IBL background that's exported together with it. So, but if you want to export the jacket just by itself, in Character Creator, select the field jacket, and you can go up to File, and you can export selected object. Okay, so what you want to do is select Export Selected Object. You can also export it to OBJ or FBX, the character, and the jacket will come as a separate mesh in that FBX. But if you just want to select the current object, field jacket right here, and just go ahead and export to iClone. We'll just save it to our desktop for now. Field jacket. It'll export as an iClone cloth file. All right, and if we take our character, let's actually bring in a different character just to show you how we can apply it to different characters here as well. So that should be, okay, is this still exporting? Take a look at the next question here while I'm at it. Okay, so Johnny asks a good question here. Okay, let me just get to this in just a moment. All right, so there's our field jacket. Let's throw that into iClone on top of this character here. Boom. And you can also export props that way as well. So same thing. If you have a prop that you import in, or like some sort of accessory that you import into iClone, you can see when you import it in, it just conforms to the character's body right away. And you'd probably want to just get rid of that camisole I think she's wearing. Dress, there you go. And should delete any minute. There you go. All right, so the jacket will automatically conform to the character's mesh, which is pretty cool. All right, so now we have that Walking Dead type jacket on our female character. Okay, so back to the questions there. Who was it? Johnny had a question here. When you import a model rigged in Maya, does it convert to iClone format? And will all the slider controls work on it to build the character, then export back? So when you import a model, a Maya rigged model, there's an automatic template that you can use to do like a one-click conversion. So the rigging will be automatic. So you can use it with all the iClone stuff, all the iClone motion tools. However, with the facial animation, that can be a bit tricky because with the facial animation, we actually just did a tutorial where we imported a character from Daz. I'd recommend checking that out, Johnny, because the process is really similar. However, when you import in those custom morph sliders for the face, the facial control, you have to use the expression editor in 3D Exchange. I'm just going to go ahead and show you that tutorial really quick there, because it's a webinar we did like a week ago, actually, I think. Well, there it is. It shows up right away. Okay, this one right here. So take a look at this one, Johnny. This is kind of a very similar process. We don't have one specifically for Maya at this point, but I think we will in the future. And if you would like to request that as a future tutorial, then definitely throw that in the survey there. And I'm going to post this in the chat window there as well. Okay, so that's the importing and animating DAZ characters. That's a webinar I did just 2 weeks ago, I believe. Okay, so let's go to the next one here. So yeah, you mentioned Johnny, will all the slider controls work on it to build the character then export back? Yeah, you have to use the expression editor to customize those. That's a bit more complex than I have time to get into right now. Okay, so Tyler mentions here when using bleout A or D, I'm not sure what bleout is, and then using the appearance editor, the bleout loses the texture. However, when you use the appearance editor on the army guy, the diffuse info stayed. Oh, the sorcerer cloth. So I haven't really, that's a question from Tyler. So the process that we just went through with the army dude, he tried that with the sorcerer character that we also sell, and the process didn't work. That it may not have an embedded color ID map. Okay, so if you can actually create your own color ID maps. You just have to use the UV map from your character's mesh. Now, I mean, say for example, let's just take a quick, because this is it's pretty relevant to what we're talking about in this webinar here. If I select my jacket, for example, I just select the material here, like this field jacket, boom, there we go. What I want to do is, if I want to create a custom color ID map for this, I just load my UV reference map, okay, and load that in Photoshop. So what's going to happen here is this loads the UV map. Now you can see right here on the right, those are the buttons. So the reason that the buttons and the zippers right here were all red is because in the color ID map, the original color ID map, if I go over to materials here, or appearance editor rather, this color ID map right here, can I launch this? No, unfortunately not, it looks like I can't launch it. But you can see on the right here, the red, and there's red up here as well. So the red is the metallic section. So that's why the buttons here, if I go back into Photoshop here, it's basically just like taking this and going red right here, okay, and then doing another red rectangle here. And the zipper parts on the side need to be customized red, and then everything else will be black, okay? So I fill everything else in black. Oops. Undo. Oh, okay, whatever. Enter. If I fill everything else in black, then, oh gosh, it's so annoying. Anyways, then what's going to happen is, that's creating your own custom color ID map. Obviously, you'd probably want to spend more than like 3 minutes, like I'm trying to do here. You'd probably want to spend a good amount of time, finding out what area of the mesh corresponds with which colors or which materials you want to have separate. But then you just basically launch the UV map and create your custom color ID map from there. The soldier character had a custom color ID map that was included in the original jacket texture there. So that's probably why. I'm not sure this bleout sorcerer cloth is, but I haven't taken a look at if it has a color ID map or not. Okay, so soft cloth weight maps. It seems to be like a lot of people, probably especially those coming from DAZ, are very interested in weight maps for physics. So I think we possibly might consider having another updated tutorial on that. We do have some tutorials on weight maps for soft cloth physics that were done a couple years ago on our YouTube channel, but I think it may be time to update this, specifically for DAZ characters. So if you agree, put that in the survey. And we can probably get a tutorial on that for you, because the higher demand, the more priority we'll have for that particular topic. So, okay, so Peter clarified his earlier comment regarding my comment on speed and resolution. Yeah, so he mentions that if you go by 512 by 512, the sliders will move a bit faster. And that's honestly why I don't recommend using the sliders, like clicking and dragging the sliders in Character Creator, because for some reason it goes really slow. I'd recommend just entering those values. So if you enter in 0.1, 0.2, enter in the values, it's much, much faster than actually kind of trying to click and drag the sliders around. But sometimes I have issues with that. I'm kind of old school, so I sometimes just still use the sliders. So Granny J mentioned that there's a guy who's pretty good with weight maps in Blender, and that is Rampa. He's in our forums quite often here. I think that was Alvin that wanted to learn about the weight maps in Blender. Rampa is really good at that, because Rampa is from Blender as well. And so that does, thanks to Granny J for that. And you can also email Granny J as well with soft cloth physics questions as well. Maybe I can put the email here in the chat window. Hope that's okay. So Granny J is one of our developers, and she uses she's a very, very prolific developer that is quite familiar with the physics, the soft cloth physics. So I'll put her email in the chat window there for you there, if you want to ask any questions of her as well. Oops, my headphone fell out there. Okay. Okay, so Charles mentions a good point here. You cannot import a non-standard character like a DAZ character and convert it to a character creator so you can use CC clothing and hair. That is currently not correct, or that is currently correct. So currently we cannot import in DAZ characters and other characters and apply CC clothing to them currently. However, that is something that we are currently working on, and that will be a feature in the near future here. Applying character creator clothing and accessories to your DAZ and other characters. You can do it, but it requires some tweaking right now. So for example, the hair, you can apply character creator hair easily to DAZ characters and any other characters as well. Normally you just have to resize it and reposition it, maybe modify the mesh a little bit. And you can do the same thing for clothing, but again, lots of tweaking will be required. But we're currently working on a way to make it a lot more streamlined and a lot easier. So hopefully that answers your question there, Charles. Okay, so Frank asks a good question. Are there tutorials on how I can import clothing I modeled to Character Creator and fit them to a character? Yes, there is. Marvelous Designer. We have I think it's for purchase, actually. But let me just Google this really quick. So here's someone's tutorial from 2016. Probably not. Let's see this one here. Okay, so yeah, this one right here, this is what I'm talking about. So the Marvelous Designer pipeline. So this is specifically for Marvelous Designer, but the pipeline information is also used for other software as well. You can use like a lot of the information in this learning resources pack. Okay, so I'd really recommend checking this out. So this is like designing your own. So you can see the tutorials right here that are included with this learning pack. Okay, there's 6 videos, and these are all included with this learning pack. I'd highly recommend checking this out, because this kind of shows you how you can import in your own custom cloth and apply it to our characters. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat window there as well, this URL. Okay, so that'll be good for a lot of people who have been asking me to, about importing their own custom cloth into iClone. There's a white paper here. There's 6 tutorial videos. You can see the instructional PDF there. Also 7 luxury wing coats. All right. Highly recommended checking it out. I was part of the development for this, so I know it's a very useful resource for anyone who's interested in that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go to the next couple questions here. So Granny J asks, can I use X normal to create world space normal maps? I'm not sure. I've never used X normal to try and create world space normal maps. The only thing I've used to create world space normal maps has been Substance Painter and 3D Coat as well. But X normal, I'm not too sure about that, unfortunately, Granny J. So sorry about that. I don't really have much knowledge about X normal myself. So yeah, Tyler mentioned with that, he kind of clarified with his earlier example there, the color ID map loads up, but it's just all white. And that's because you have to, I guess, generate one from scratch in that case, unfortunately, Tyler. So some characters will have, characters that are designed specifically for character creator will normally include a color ID map for different parts of their mesh, but some may not. In that case, you have to use that UV map workaround to create your own custom one. So another question from Johnny: can we easily get a stock iClone character to mimic or conform to the exact dimension of an imported mesh? Yeah, that might require a lot of. There's no direct pipeline for that, as far as I know, Johnny. But I mean, you can achieve it. Or have a very, very close looking replica. But you'd have to have a workaround for that. I can't really think of the fastest workaround right now, but I know it's possible for sure. It's just a matter of time and effort, I guess. Okay, so Walter asks, how does ambient occlusion, HDR, and tone mapping affect the look of a character? What does the tone map do exactly? Okay, so ambient occlusion, HDR, and tone mapping. So let's go to our iClone here. Now, if you go to your visual tab here, the tone map right here, tone map is kind of like a way to add exposure and contrast to your scene here. So if you select tone map, for example, notice that the contrast is a lot higher contrast. Generally, that's the way that I describe it. If you increase the whiteness threshold or decrease the whiteness threshold, that means it's going to be way overexposed. So you can kind of customize the amount of exposure that your character has or the lighting has in the scene, so the general lighting. So you can underexpose it, you can overexpose it, okay? Adaptation speed is how this adapts when you're moving the camera. So, but like basically my understanding of it is that tone map just kind of adds more contrast and allows you to really customize the exposure a lot more. All right, so you'll end up having more like sharper results, which I like in a lot of cases. I've used tone map, very often in previous projects that I've done. For higher contrast, like I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of high contrast shadows and exposure and stuff like that. I don't really like the soft, dreamy stuff, but to each their own, right? But ambient occlusion is really useful. Every scene needs a little bit of ambient occlusion. I'd highly recommend it. Let's take a look at what it does to this character. Boom. Okay, so now you notice that, especially around her neck area there, it just creates a bit more, it just kind of emphasizes certain ridges and certain crevices on your character's texture. All right, so if you decrease the strength, notice especially, right here around her neck area, you see a very strong result there. Okay, so you can really just emphasize the shadows, emphasize certain shadowy areas. It really works well with, not necessarily with characters, but with like stone walls or textures or materials that are on buildings and stuff like that. Highly recommended. Of course, you have to find the balance. You can select View IO, or AO rather, to view the map, which areas are affected. So you take the strength all the way down, whereas take strength all the way up. You'll see where it's adding those shadows here in a bit more higher contrast. Okay, so hopefully that makes that clear for you there. Walter, okay, so Okay, so thanks to Judy for enjoying the webinar. Again, hopefully you guys learned a lot here. I know a lot of the stuff I covered is pretty basic for those of you who have been using Character Creator for quite a while already. A lot of these features were new with 2.0, which came out late last year or midway through last year. Okay, so Granny J mentions here as well, just as an addition here, you can take DAZ clothing and hair into a third-party software like 3ds Max, Maya, and bring in the base character and then import to Character Creator. So yeah, that's one way to do it. I mean, kind of a workaround. Currently, there's a lot of workarounds. People mention that a lot. And Granny J, you mentioned there's a free tutorial from Warlord, and that's on the clothing import. Yeah, there's that learning resource pack I showed you, but Granny J seems to think there's mentioned there's a free tutorial from Warlord. So let's see if I can find that. Because Warlord has some really good tutorials. I like that guy. It's fairly clear and concise with his tutorials. Oh, what would it be under? Maybe. This will be, yeah. Hard to find. Oh, here we go. So maybe this one will be useful for you guys. Let's learn about Wix first. All right. That nonsense. Okay, so I think this is clothing creation and import into Character Creator. It looks like it. So I'm going to post this. Okay, yeah, so it looks like he does a pair of pants here and imports it in. So I'm going to share this with you guys here as well. I was not aware of this. It's a couple of years old, so maybe the process might have changed. Hopefully this is the one you're talking about. But I'll throw this in the chat window just in case you guys want to check it out. Warlord has a lot of great tutorials anyways, so well worth checking out his channel for other cool stuff as well. All right, yes, we are recording this, Don mentioned, so all of the stuff we're talking about now you can review. Robert asks, is there a great resource for Character Creator compatible pre-made clothing? Marvelous Designer, the one I mentioned earlier, is really good for cloth creation. They come to like SIGGRAPH every year, and every time I go to their booth, I just see their stuff. I'm just like, wow. You know, I wish I was really good at it, but unfortunately, I'm not really super good at creating clothing myself. But yeah, Marvelous Designer, Robert, is a great software for creating clothing if you're interested in that. Okay, so this is. All right, so I found the same tutorial there as Granny J. Okay, good. Okay, so that tutorial I just put in there in the chat window there, that's the for those of you who are interested in creating your own basic clothing and importing it, that process is outlined in this basic clothing tutorial here. All right, so, all right, I think that's pretty much it for the questions there, guys. I went through a whole bunch of them there. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the webinar, guys, and ladies and gentlemen, or guys and girls. So if you have any further questions, again, my email is kai@reallusion.com. Also in the chat window there, I'll be able to answer you guys one-on-one for more detailed or more in-depth questions that you might have. It also gives me more time to kind of work around or analyze stuff myself. And yeah, make sure you fill out the survey because you want to get 10% off the content store there, and we'll be able to generate more tutorials in the future based on what kind of stuff you guys are interested in and what you want to learn about. So yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, as well as make sure you check out our forums as well at forum.reallusion.com. Lots of really smart people there in the forums. Can help you with your problems there as well. Yeah, so if you don't get the survey, you can email me and I'll send out the survey to you. I'll make sure that people send the survey to you, and also make sure that you check your junk mail or your spam folder as well for the survey. All right, so I'm going to sign off there, guys. Thanks so much for attending, and hope to see you in a future webinar and future tutorials. And I'll bid you adieu and good night.